It's Valentine's month. We're a couple days after Valentine's Day, and we're going to dive into the emotional connection that you need if you really want to have a healthy life in all aspects, because no supplement can fix what emotional disconnection is doing to your body. So we're going to get straight to the heart, and we're going to do that right after this. Welcome, everybody. This is the Life Enthusiast Health Shots podcast, restoring vitality to you and the planet. I'm your co-host, Scott Patton. Joining us, as usual, health engineer Martin Patella. Hey, Martin, how's your health today? How's your heart today?
Okay, my heart is healthy. I have been working on emotional connection to people, and I'm finding that the vibration of gratitude is tuning me in a good way, and grievance, complaining, whining, and resentment makes me feel less healthy. How's that?
Less healthy. And how do you act towards people when you're feeling these two different feelings?
Well, in gratitude, you're just so happy that they're in your life, right? Like, dear God, I am so pleased that you brought this asshole into my life so I can learn this valuable lesson.
Okay. I wasn't exactly thinking of that. George says that sounds about right.
You know, I am grateful for the drill sergeant who tortured me on the field, because now the actual engagement feels pretty awesome.
Yeah, you have to be prepared.
That's it.
And I think
so. Now,
I think
of course, I was.
You bring up a really good point, though, and that is being aware and being conscious, right? Like, so when you go, oh man, like when we don't feel gratitude, when we feel frustration, when we feel anger towards that person, and we're not really aware of it, there's a lashing out, and there's also a fall back to what we learned as kids, like how your mom was, or how your dad was, how maybe some of your teachers were, how maybe some of your friends. And I really notice it when I'm visiting my son and his wife, because I've met her grandparents, and how she deals with stuff is exactly how grandma deals with stuff. It's really quite amazing to watch. And I'm sure they're all totally oblivious, but you know, grandma will be upset with one of the grandkids, and then granddaughter will be upset. And I'm thinking, there's no reason to be like, it's not like they, deliberately broke something, or did anything that would be like, from an outsider looking in, would like, he's a kid, just that's the way kids are. Don't like big deal, right? And they're not, it's not when they're yelling or they're running around or anything. It's just they did something and they didn't like it, and then they snapped to this reaction, which brings me to some of the mind training or emotional training I've gone through. And there's a 3-in-1 Concepts has this thing called the behavioral barometer, which I found fascinating because it talks about the energy. They do muscle testing, right? That sort of thing. And you would have one side would be like calm, and the other side of the behavioral barometer, there's 2 columns, would be like super anxious or something, right? And that's not on it, but that's the only thing I can think of right now. And to go from one to the other is a split second. So connection and disconnection are opposite sides. So you can feel really, really connected to somebody, and then they say something that for whatever reason triggers you, and you go immediately to disconnection. And I notice that with me a lot. Like, I'll feel really connected to my son and he'll do something, and then I feel really disconnected.
Well, let me explain this. There's a physiology for this, right? We have evolved in a dangerous world, and visualize it as a, I don't know, open prairie or a savanna or somewhere out there Wherever we were living a tribal life as a hunter-gatherer, we always had to be prepared for something quite fast that's going to come and get us.
Right.
So this amygdala, this tiny little sensory organ that dwells just inside your brain, underneath your temples, just inside there, about the size of the tip of your thumb, size of an almond, really, is processing all of the inputs: visual, smelly, auditory. It's all meeting right there. Everything channels through there. And it's split second evaluating safe, not safe, safe, not safe.
Exactly.
And your life depends on it. And so if that gets triggered, you go from safe to, it could
Unsafe.
be life altering, right? It could be life ending. And so if that is not working fast, you've lost it and you're genetically eliminated. So only the people who have had this fast reaction have had children ultimately.
Right.
The slow
Survival of
reacting
the
ones
fittest.
are food.
Yeah.
Right on. Okay, so that is what will send you from everything's cool to nothing is cool.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about this emotional connection. And I would define it more than just like holding hands or, oh, I love you, but feeling like where you're at is safety, getting back to what you were talking about, safe versus unsafe, and having resonance with the people and a mutual presence. So they're attentive to you, you're attentive to them. And that begins this connection. And it's important because it really regulates your nervous system. It improves your immune function. It releases oxytocin, reduces inflammations. So your emotional state has a huge impact on your physical state. And we see that all the time in our fibromyalgia group, where, you know, we'll get chatting with them, or they'll be chatting amongst themselves, and someone will say, well, did you have trauma when you were young? Or, you know, an emotional upsets? And, you know, a significant number of those 170,000 people say, yeah, when I was young, I had this, or when I was a teenager, I had that, or I got divorced and that was very traumatic. And so,
this is an important concept, Scott. ACE, adverse childhood event. If you had 6, like, parents divorced, parent disappeared, parent went to jail, parent died, alcoholic in the house, blah, blah, blah. There are all these different things. You can look it up online. Anyway, the more you have, the more likely you are going to live a shorter life, triggered an illness, aging faster, and having less positive outcomes throughout. Right?
Yeah.
So that's the childhood part. That's the childhood part. But the adult part that you're talking about here now is, I think that we humans are team players. I think we're tribal ultimately, right? Like we want to belong to a group. But before that, we need to belong to a family. And before that, we need to bond with at least one significant other.
Right. And usually you see that. Like I've seen a couple reels where they have a baby and then the two parents go in opposite directions and the baby goes after one, not the other, and supposedly loves that one more, but
is bonded more,
or
has had experiences of more nourishment, emotional nurturing.
Yeah.
Right. I would expect my young children to go with their mother and my teenagers to come to me, because I was representing the world connection, the outside world connection. Mother was representing the immediate emotional, I'm safe connection.
Right. So when it comes to connection and disconnection, one issue, of course, is, and one question I have is for you, Martin, is, can you really connect deeply with another person if you're emotionally disconnected from yourself?
Oh, Lord.
I mean, and we're talking in generalities. Obviously, we could probably find one person out of 8 billion, whereas they're disconnected with themselves but connected to somebody else. But
Yeah.
generally speaking,
What comes to mind is the more messed up you are, the less capable you are of having anything worthwhile, right?
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. And
how
usually
could
what
you-
happens is two messed up people get together, maybe messed up in different ways, and they're together because of their messed upness, not because they've got a wonderful emotional connection.
Yeah, codependence. One, instead of being straight, leans to the left and ends up with somebody who leans to the right, and they end up with some kind of a structure that's not falling over.
Right.
Yeah. Oh,
And so let's talk a little bit about being lonely and loneliness and being alone, because being an introvert, for me, they're totally different things.
yeah.
But I do know people who are more extroverted than I am, and they spend a lot of, and they have spent, say, the last 2 weeks pretty much on their own. And they really, you can tell they're really upset and sad, not mad necessarily,
Yeah,
but
drained.
off,
Drained.
because
Yeah.
they miss that connection. They get juice, they get energy from being with other people. And that's an extrovert. And us introverts, we hug a tree and we get our energy from that quiet time.
You just opened such a huge topic, right? So one thing. So an introvert enters a room, a cocktail party room, and looks for a corner where they can stand and observe and evaluate just how safe that room might be. An extrovert enters the room and starts yelling, "Hey, everyone, what's going on?"
Right.
And come on down, and starts entertaining, spewing out instead of evaluating, right? The first one feels that the environment first needs to be evaluated for its being threatening. The other one steps in and says, "I own all of this. Let it be commanded by me now."
Yeah. Takes a while to warm up.
Yeah, well, you need to feel safe if you are and so there are these two different methods of the central nervous system, right? One is feeling inherently unsafe and evaluates. The other one feels inherently safe and only reacts to threats should they come. Otherwise, it's assuming that everything's fine.
Right.
Curious stuff, right? How can it be? How can we be so different?
Yeah. That's a great question. So you can be lonely, and then now all of a sudden you've got, I think the difference is kind of the emotional attachment, right? I'm lonely, poor me, nobody wants to talk to me. Whereas if you're alone and you enjoy your company, it's like, oh, I get to read a book, or oh, I get to watch a video that nobody else wants to watch in the household, or I get to go for a walk when I want to go for a walk, even though everybody else is having a nap, or whatever it happens to be, right?
Yeah, the yin and the yang of it, the dynamic balance, right? Like if you're going to inhale, you can only inhale to the point when you're fully extended, and at that point you have to start exhaling. But you cannot continue to exhale until you're deflated like an empty balloon. At some point you have to stop exhaling and you need to start inhaling again. In, out, in, out. Now, there are different rhythms, different capacities, different paces, but I don't know, read someplace that if they put you into a solitary confinement, then in about 3 days you start feeling pretty despondent, and in 5 days you're starting to go crazy.
Yep. No contact at all. So George says,
yeah, go ahead.
George says, like Henry Thoreau or Jeremiah Johnson, the mountain man. Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Well, of course, they replaced the human contact with the nature contact, right? Like you're not alone. You're with trees. You're with rocks. You are communicating with whatever's out there. It's the empty box that is really awful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then there are the kids. There are the kids of the Romanian orphanages where they have just put them in little beds, wouldn't touch them, wouldn't nurture them, wouldn't interact with them. These children essentially died of emotional starvation.
Yeah. Actually, that's also a lot of hospitals, the natal, where the babies are. They have programs where people will come in, particularly like grandparents or elderly that need something to do. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but these older
time.
people, well, they'll come in, right? They're lonely. They come in, they hold the baby. The baby gets the contact that the baby needs, and the adult gets the contact that the adults, and they both thrive. Whereas
Yes.
before, when they just left the baby in the bed, all day, because there's something wrong with them, and they got tubes coming out or whatever, they would just suffer and I don't want to say die, but become worse.
Oh, they failed to thrive. Yeah.
Fail to thrive, right? So the other part of this is, well, before I get into that, you told me before we came on the air that you had been reading or watching an article by a cardiologist. And I'd love for you to share a little bit of that.
Well, this was a cardiovascular disease is a leading cause of morbidity and mortality globally. 9 out of 10 Canadian, this was a Canadian study, have at least one risk factor for heart disease. 60% Canadian adults are overweight or obese. More men than women, 27 rather than 25. Hypertension is higher in men, 60% versus women, 40%. Men are more likely to have diabetes. 40% of Canadian men have insufficient physical activity, which would be a minimum of 150 minutes of moderate intensity a week. Which isn't much. Like, divide that by 7, that's 20 minutes a day, every day, right?
Right.
Anyway, blah, 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 blah. It goes through that it's the heart and the thyroid and the prostate connection. Dunk, dunk, dunk. So I can go into the technical details of what happens with the dietary and whatever. But
so moving back to the disconnect and connect situation, when you're disconnected, you're basically in survival mode, which means you've got lots of cortisol, which means that you're going to be burning out, you're going to be fatigued, you're going to have anxiety, you're going to have a problem getting rid of fat. So of course that's, if that cortisol is the kind of the fat hormone. So we really need to work on our connections. And I guess the biggest problem is most of us are super connected to something that looks like this, right? It's a phone.
So, the phone. The thing.
Everybody's on
looked
this
like a blob when you showed the black side of it.
Oh, yeah. It's my phone. So if you're connected, deeply connected to
whatever.
It's my blur thing. If you're out of focus and you're on your phone all the time, you're not really connected. And you're going to be having lots of problems, high cortisol.
Yeah, this cardiovascular doctor was talking about calcification. They run a scan and they show that your coronary arteries are calcifying. And then they start predicting on statistics. Well, why are you calcifying, right? And we understand the calcium versus magnesium story. We've talked about that. Calcium is the signal mineral of stress. Magnesium is the signal mineral of relaxation. So the more stressed you are, the more calcium you're going to get. And the more EMF and electromagnetic frequencies you're under, hence your phone demo, the more likely you are to be flooded by this calcium release, which will then harden your tissues, especially the arteries. And should I go technical downhill from there?
No, I think you kind of gave the good overview. But let's talk about some ways that we can cultivate connection. And let's start with the self-connection, right? So one thing I think very few people do at all is, what am I feeling right now? What do I need right now? Like, what's going on with me? It's kind of like we go through life oblivious to everything that's going on to us, right? And it's like, wow, like how do I feel right now? Like, what's going on? And that self-awareness really helps.
Scott, what comes to me is how can I give something to myself? Right. So if I want to give attention, I first need to be capable of giving attention. And it should start with being able to perceive what's going on here, so I can reflect and perceive what might be going on over there on your side.
Yep. Yeah. Another aspect of it is mirror work.
I hear you say.
Yeah. Like how often do we look in the mirror?
I don't like that.
Yeah, nobody does, but take it, just take your glasses off, look in the mirror and talk to yourself for a few minutes. Be surprised, right? Someone talks back to you.
Oh. Yeah. All right.
And then breathing. Like the other part of it is, like you'd already talked about how, breathe in and then you can't breathe in anymore, and then breathe out, you can't breathe out anymore. But we don't consciously breathe. And, take that nice deep breath in and just all of a sudden you're relaxing. And, I think sometimes we don't get enough air in our body for all the things that we need. So let's move.
Here's important thing, the balance between oxygen and carbon dioxide, CO2. And so if you're breathing shallow, if you're up in the hyperventilation mode, then you're going to be raising you're trying to get rid of the acidity in your body, right? So you're trying to push it out. But you could actually put yourself completely out.
Yeah. Our breath is amazingly powerful.
Yeah.
So then when we want to talk about connecting with other people, I think part of the problem is we just don't know what to say. That's my problem. I don't know what to say, right? And in an active listening practice, you could just say something as simple as, well, tell me more about that.
Oh. Yeah.
And look at the person. How did that come about? And look at the person, you're looking at the person as opposed to, it's really interesting, Martin, what you're doing. Yeah, I'm really interested in what you're saying.
Yeah, I really feel that you've connected with me fully.
And appreciation, right? Like we used to do this in one of the retreats I went to. What I love about you is, right? And we would practice that sort of, and then finish the sentence. And if you do it 10 times, you start getting really, really deep. But I think people just like to be appreciated. Like I have a fellow that I meet every week and we talk about our goals and different things. And we've been doing it for, 8 months, 9 months. And today when we were done, I got on to our chat and I just said, I really appreciate this time with you every week because it really helps me focus and I feel like there's some, because we listen to each other, right? Like we have each other's total, attention for half an hour, 45 minutes. And then we also have the structure of how we do the meeting. But to be able to just say, like today, I had a dilemma with this friend of mine that wants to do a travel guide that I don't want to do with him. So I just told Croy and he helped me kind of get clear. And it wasn't that I didn't want to do it, but I didn't know how to tell him. And then Croy gave me some, suggestions and some examples because he knows what I'm doing and all that sort of stuff. And it was really, really helpful. So at the end of it, I just said, Croy, I really appreciate this time together because I get a lot out of it. It really helps me. And so that's something too, is look at the people around and like, what do you many people haven't even thought ever of like, what do I appreciate about my mom and dad or my kids or whatever. They never even think about it and they never say anything about it. But that's a really good way to build connection. I always think of an emotional bank account, right? When I say something nice, I make a deposit. When I do something really assholey, I make a withdrawal. And if you're bankrupt, then they don't have anything to do with you, right? So
Yeah. I remember talking to my staff, explaining to them, trust is earned by the spoonfuls. It's lost by the bucketfuls.
yeah,
When you do something nice, you just get a small little deposit. When you do something awful, you get a massive withdrawal all at once.
yeah. And we see that in commerce, right? Like in the retail store, you go in, oh, they have milk, great. And I buy the milk, I don't think about it. Then you go in and the cashier says something mean or that you didn't like, you go to the other store. Right? Massive withdrawal of my money, right?
Yes.
So
okay, so you're talking about this interaction. I think that's super important, this validation of our existence. I mean, what are the basic human needs, if not a need for some significance, to know
right.
that I matter to at least one person?
Right. You remind me of the starfish story. Guy's walking along the beach. The kid is walking along the beach and he picks up a starfish and he throws it in, and there's tons of thousands of them, right? The man comes up and he says, "What are you doing?" "Oh, I'm throwing the starfish back." "Well, there's too many. You're never going to throw them all back. You will make no difference." And the kid looks at the man and says, "Well, it made a difference to that one." And that's, I think, what we need to remember, right? It's like when I house sit, I make a difference to a dog or two dogs or a cat or two cats. Like, big deal. Well, it's a big deal to them because they got fed and they got cuddled and they got walked and they slept safely and all the rest of it, right? So,
okay, so the heart month,
right?
So the heart month. So you want to talk about the fact that emotional health is supremely important. I would like to suggest that it's like the proverbial iceberg, where when we have an illness, the physical manifestation of it is the 10% that's floating above the waterline. But the 90% of the causation of it is the volume that's causing it to float. That's
underneath the water.
And that's the emotional component of your existence.
Yeah, that's right.
And I feel strongly that a lot of physical problems that we see manifest are, in fact, problems of emotional wellness.
Yeah. How often do we scan our body and just say, I love my brain, I love my nose, I love my tongue, I love my heart, I love my, and I kind of go through that every once in a while. And then also just say, I love my body and I have perfect radiant health is one of my mantras, right? And so here I am, almost 70, and I'm not on any drugs.
Right.
And I usually can walk no problem, although I did something last night, my leg is sore when I straighten it out. But that's what happens when you're our age. It also happened when I was 30. But it was a little more strenuous when I was 30.
Yeah. I think what happens in the older age is that the repair speed is slower. That's the main thing you notice, that you have more wisdom about getting hurt less. But at the same time, once you do get hurt, it takes you longer to recover.
Yeah, I agree. So we've been talking about the emotional things that everybody can do, but the fact of the matter is you can also, what you put into your mouth makes a difference as well. And there are lots of herbs and superfoods that can help. And I wanted to talk about two. The first one being Heart Ease. It's a herbal thing that we have from Earth Friend.
Well, Scott, this thing is specifically for people who have had heart muscle damage. So if you are one or if you know anyone with a heart disease, post heart attack, this is an absolute lifesaver. This will help to rebuild damaged tissue. That's what this does.
So everybody that got vaccinated should have it.
Yeah. Well,
So
vaccinated.
So
It's
here's
another story.
let's just forget I said that, and we'll move on to the point I really want to make with you or discuss with you is like my mom has congenial heart failure.
Okay, congenital
Heart failure, right? So it means
Yeah.
her heart has some problems, and sometimes she gets water and fluid in her lungs, and blah 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 blah. So genetically speaking, that may happen to me, right? Because mom had it, I have her genetics. So
Yep.
something like heart ease for me is not just about, well, I've had my heart attack, so I need it, but it's also about I don't want to have my heart attack, so I take it, or I don't want to have this condition that my mom has.
Right.
So
well, it will certainly repair even the micro injuries as they happen. So yeah, you don't need to wait for the heart attack to help heal your heart.
Yeah, that's what I think a lot of people make the big mistake, right? It's like they wait for the they have bald tires on their car. It's icy out. They go drive and they skid all over the place and run into a telephone pole. And now they want to go get new tires. Like that's the wrong time to go get new tires, in my opinion. So
yeah.
So some of the ingredients, just to quickly let you, like there's a lot in here, and we don't want to go over all of them, but I just want to say that, you know, the formula is a proven formula by a master herbalist, and there's a lot of amazing stuff in here, and it's certified organic and wild crafted, which to me is a step above organic.
Right. Yeah. We buy stuff that either has grown out in nature in the forest, or it has been commercially grown in certified organic facility. Yeah.
I want to highlight one item here, Martin, and that's ginger root. Not what it does or anything else, but you use ginger root in so many different products and blends, and I just think that it is an absolutely amazing root. I guess I don't know what to call it, but
it's a tuber. Yes,
it's a tuber. Absolutely incredible.
It is phenomenal. It and its cousin turmeric are just the two most amazing things in nature. Ginger is a stimulant. It's like a spark. It gives more life. It's like the encouragement that makes things work. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a friend who slices off maybe an eighth of an inch of ginger root a day, and in the morning just chews it. And
okay, that takes some
healthy.
getting used to, I believe.
I know. It freaked me out when I saw her do it the first time. It's like, oh.
I remember, we put it into stir fries, right? We slice some ginger or maybe grate it and throw it into a stir fry to give it a zing. And so when I end up biting into that solid piece of ginger that's left in the stir fry because you can't find it, it's in your mouth. I certainly notice it's loud when you hit it.
And the last one I want to take a look at is Heart Studies Formula by Exla.
All right. Okay. Well, that's a fix everything. It got its name by the studies. When Javari was working on this thing, he printed about a 2.5 or 3 foot stack of paper. It was nearly an entire box of paper. He was a paper reader, and he would study the whole thing. And there were all these different studies, each of them pointing at this fixes heart issues and this and this and this and this, right? There are different groups of things. And it has to do with the hardening of the arteries, the clogging of the arteries, the stress-induced aging effects, right? The subtle damage of the tissues and so on. All of that is part of the formula. Everything in there has been added in. So
Oh,
that when you take it, okay, his method, of course, was to put it all in his consciousness and meditate on it.
right.
He would meditate his way through how does this relate to that and how does it hold together. It's a lot like trying to conduct a symphonic orchestra. You have the violins and you have the bass players and you have the woodwinds and you have the whistly flutes and you have the deep sounding bassoons and all of that, right? and and you need to put it all together and you need to make it all sound right. And that's this likeness. There are 300 some ingredients in this, and they all needed to be put together in a harmonious way. And that's
Right.
that's what I believe he achieved.
Cool. And George says, I have my order. Great stuff.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm on the liver superfood right now.
Yeah.
So, but I had the heart formula a few days ago. And again, to me, it's really about preventing, like strengthening your body. So when you do have the challenges that we all have throughout our lives, we're able to sail through it. Kind of like, one of the things that the British colonized North America. And one of the things that was really amazing about northern United States and Canada was the trees grew very straight, very tall, and were incredibly strong because they were an incredibly harsh environment, minus 30 degrees in the winter and all that sort of stuff. So they were able to build ships that had bigger sails, that when there was a storm, the mast didn't break up, break in half sort of thing. And so they were able to get bigger, better speed. And that's one of the reasons that they were so successful in that colonization period compared to the Spanish and the Portuguese, because they were using pine from warm climates, Mexico and South America, and they didn't grow as high and they didn't grow as strong because they didn't have that harshness. And you talk about that a lot, about some of the ingredients coming from, high up in the Andes where it's really, really tough. And we're the same way. Like, we have things that happen to us that's really harsh and really hard. And if you're on the edge of like being healthy and not healthy, it pushes you into unhealthiness. But if you're way far away from that edge, it just pushes you to like, oh, I have a little bit of a cold, or I feel a little sad today, versus a full blown heart attack sort of thing. Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what this is really about.
I remember Gary Brecka, famous man in the health space, saying illness is caused by the relentless pursuit of comfort. I think he also spoke of aging or premature death or weakness or whatever else, right? So the antidote would be the voluntary adversity, which
would be like walking 20 minutes a day. Like, it doesn't
that's a small one, and yes,
that's a small one, right? Or going into a sauna for 20 minutes, and
or a cold plunge, or at least a cold shower.
It's minus 22 where I am right now. I am not plunging into anything cold.
get into your swimsuit and go out for a 10-minute walk.
Yeah. I chase the dogs around the yard when they don't come in after I let them out. And that's
okay. Cool. Very cool.
All right. So those are two things. We've put them in the comments so you'll be able to see them, that we really recommend, particularly when you want to, take care of your heart. And this happens to be the Valentine's is this month. And we just wanted to focus on, your heart health. And it's American Heart Month too, as far as that goes. So emotional connection isn't a luxury. It's medicine. It's for your heart, your nervous system, and your soul. So we really want you to, if you have to rewatch, but take one action today to deepen connection with yourself and with your friends and family and significant others. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe, let people know about the episode, send them the link. There is a share button down there somewhere. And Martin, any last words before we sign off?
Indeed, people, do subscribe and come here for your weekly dose of love and connection and caring. We will consistently deliver because we're now 2 wise old grandfathers.
That's right. Who have embraced
come and get it. It's
grandfatherhood.
available.
There's nothing like one of mine is 3 years old. So they have this huge, massive couch in the TV room. And he says, come play with me, Grandpa. And I said, okay. So he's playing and with his toys. And so I'm just leaving him alone. He's occupied, right? And I lay down on the couch. And next thing I know, he's on my back and jumping up and down. And it, and then his laughter just brings so much joy into my life. It's just wonderful. George says he feels warm all over. That's what we want, George. We appreciate you. You're a significant part of the show and you really motivate us. So I want to thank you very much. And with that, Martin, we're going to say sayonara, everybody. We'll see you next week, Wednesday, 2:30 Eastern, 11:30 Pacific. And this has been the
Peace be with all of you.
Yes. This has been the Life Enthusiast Health Shots podcast, restoring vitality to you and the planet. See you next time. Bye for now.
My body's a temple, but the walls are cracked. Stuck in the rubble of the years I've stacked. Stagnation in my veins like a river to the dust. Toxic whispers in the wind, but I gotta rebuild. I must.